Alien princess falls in love with the human who rescued her. The planet of Alaris was not a friendly place. Its sky glowed a deep violet, streaked with violent flashes of lightning that made the horizon tremble. Mountains of jagged rock stretched across the land, and strange, glowing plants scattered in patches between the cliffs. It was a world both beautiful and dangerous. Few had ever set foot there, and even fewer had survived for long. But among those few was a human named Marcus, a man who had grown up hearing tales of distant worlds and had always dreamed of exploring them. Marcus had landed on Alaris on a simple mission. His job was to map the planet for research, but he never expected to find what he was about to encounter. While flying over the treacherous cliffs in his small craft, a faint distress signal blinked on his dashboard. At first, he thought it was a technical error. The signal was weak and unstable, but it carried a tone of urgency he could not ignore. Curious and cautious, Marcus followed the signal, maneuvering his craft over sharp ridges and dangerous currents of wind. After hours of careful navigation, he finally found the source. In a rocky canyon far below, trapped between a cliff and a collapsing bridge, was a figure. A young woman, clearly alien, with luminescent skin that shimmered in the dim light. Her long, silver hair flowed over her shoulders, moving slightly with the gusts of wind. Her eyes, a deep shade of violet, were wide with fear, scanning the canyon for any sign of danger. Marcus immediately recognized her distress. He had seen enough danger in his life to know she could not escape alone. The alien princess, though small in stature, had a presence that seemed to fill the space around her. She had been captured days before by a group of mercenaries who wanted to hold her for ransom. Alaris's wild landscape had made it difficult for her captors to keep her restrained, and she had tried several times to escape. Each attempt had ended in failure, leaving her exhausted and frightened. As Marcus observed from above, he noticed that she was struggling to maintain her balance on the narrow ledge, and it became clear that she might not survive the next few minutes without help. Marcus acted quickly. He guided his craft lower, descending with careful precision. The canyon was narrow, the winds fierce, and the terrain unforgiving. Yet Marcus remained calm. He had faced dangerous situations before, storms, damaged spacecraft, even hostile creatures, but none as delicate and urgent as this one. He landed his craft on a small, flat rock near the edge of the cliff, the vibrations of the landing sending small rocks tumbling down into the abyss below. "Hey, are you okay?" he called out. His voice carried surprisingly well over the wind. The princess looked up, her eyes meeting his for the first time. For a moment, the wind and the noise of the canyon disappeared. All she saw was a human, a stranger, standing before her with calm determination. There was no fear in his stance, no hesitation, only focus and readiness. I need help," she said, her voice trembling but strong. Even though they did not speak the same language perfectly, Marcus could understand her tone, and he instinctively knew what she needed. He extended his hand. "Take my hand, I'll get you out of here." She hesitated. Her instincts told her to be wary. She had been betrayed and captured before, and she did not trust easily. But something about Marcus, his steady eyes, his confident movements, made her pause. Slowly she reached out, her hand trembling, and grasped his. Marcus pulled gently but firmly, guiding her away from the edge. She stumbled, almost losing her balance, and he held her tight, steadying her against the rocks. Her heart pounded in her chest, and for a moment she feared she might fall anyway. But Marcus never let go. Step by careful step, they moved across the uneven ground, climbing over jagged rocks, avoiding sudden drops and leaping over small chasms. Once they were on safer ground, the princess finally relaxed slightly, though she still kept her distance. She looked at him with a mixture of awe and caution. Marcus, noticing her wariness, smiled gently. "You're safe now, just a little farther and we can get to my craft." The princess studied him. There was something in his eyes that told her he genuinely cared for her safety. No one had ever looked at her like that, not even the men who claimed to protect her. She wanted to speak, but the words failed her. Instead, she nodded, trusting him, at least for now. Marcus guided her to the craft, which was small but sturdy. The moment she saw it, her eyes widened. She had never seen a human vehicle up close before. It was simple compared to the technology she was used to, yet efficient and reliable. Marcus opened the door, gesturing for her to enter. She stepped inside cautiously, still scanning the canyon for any threats. Once she was seated, Marcus quickly checked the craft systems. He engaged the engines, and the vehicle lifted off the ground smoothly, avoiding the jagged rocks below. As they ascended, the princess finally allowed herself to breathe. She realized that for the first time in days, she felt a sense of safety she had not known since being captured. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the engines. Marcus glanced at her, a warm smile on his face. "No need to thank me. I just did what anyone would do." He didn't want to frighten her with heroics. He wanted her to feel that she had a choice in trusting him. As the craft flew over the canyon, the princess began to study Marcus. He was human, strong, intelligent, and surprisingly calm under pressure. Yet there was something more. There was kindness in his actions, patience in his movements, and bravery that did not come from recklessness but from careful decision-making. She felt a strange connection, one she had not experienced before. For Marcus, the princess was unlike anyone he had ever met. Her movements were graceful, even in distress. Her eyes reflected both fear and determination. He could see the intelligence in her gaze, the way she assessed the situation, even as she relied on him for safety. He realized that rescuing her was more than just a mission. It was the beginning of something he could not yet understand, a bond forming in the most unlikely of circumstances. Hours passed as they navigated the dangerous landscape. Marcus kept the craft low, avoiding detection by any remaining threats. The princess remained quiet for most of the journey, observing Marcus as he worked. She noticed small things, the way he adjusted the controls carefully, how he scanned the surroundings constantly, and how he occasionally looked at her to make sure she was okay. Finally, they reached a relatively safe plateau. The sun, or what passed for a sun on Alaris, was setting, casting a soft golden glow over the jagged terrain. Marcus landed the craft gently, and the princess stepped out. For the first time, she was standing on solid ground without fear. She looked around, taking in the alien world, and then looked at Marcus. "You saved me," she said again, this time with more confidence. Marcus nodded, brushing some dirt from his sleeve. "I did. You're safe now, but we need to keep moving. There could still be danger out there." The princess studied him, and something inside her shifted. She realized that her feelings were changing. This human, this stranger, had risked his life for her. He had not hesitated, not once, even when the situation was dangerous. She had never encountered such courage, such kindness in anyone before, and she began to feel a warmth in her chest, a strange new feeling she could not yet name. Marcus noticed the subtle change in her expression, though he did not know its meaning. He focused on their next steps, finding a safe place to rest, securing supplies, and planning their escape from the planet before her captors could find them again. Yet, even as he concentrated on survival, he could not ignore the connection he felt with the princess. There was something compelling about her presence, something that made him want to protect her, not just out of duty, but out of genuine care. As night fell on Alaris, they set up a small camp on the plateau. Marcus prepared a simple meal, and the princess watched him with curiosity. She had seen humans before, but never up close, never in such ordinary, caring moments. She found herself smiling faintly, feeling a strange sense of comfort in his presence. That night, as they sat beside the small fire, the princess finally spoke more about herself. She told Marcus of her life as royalty, of the responsibilities she bore, and the danger that had followed her. Marcus listened carefully, never interrupting, offering small words of reassurance. He did not fully understand her world, but he understood what it meant to care for someone, to protect them, and to be brave in the face of fear. By the end of the night, the bond between them had grown stronger. The princess no longer saw Marcus as just a rescuer. She saw him as someone trustworthy, someone brave, someone kind. And though she did not yet fully understand her feelings, a seed had been planted in her heart, a seed of trust, admiration, and something far more powerful. Marcus, too, felt a growing respect and curiosity for the princess. He realized that this rescue had become more than a mission. It had become a journey, one that would change both of their lives forever. And as they prepared to rest for the night, neither could imagine the challenges, adventures, and emotions that awaited them on the path ahead. The stars of Alaris shimmered above, silent witnesses to the beginning of an extraordinary bond between a human and an alien princess. Neither knew where this connection would lead, but for the first time, both felt a fragile yet undeniable hope. Hope that in a dangerous world, trust and courage could spark something beautiful, something that might last a lifetime. After their first night on the plateau, the alien, Princess and Marcus continued their journey through the harsh landscape of Alaris. The planet was unforgiving, but for the first time the princess did not feel completely alone. She had a companion, someone who cared for her safety and who seemed to understand the meaning of courage. Marcus, on the other hand, had never met anyone like her. Her grace, intelligence, and quiet strength fascinated him. But beyond fascination, he felt a growing responsibility. He had saved her life once, and he would do it again if needed. The morning air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of strange, glowing plants that dotted the rocky terrain. Marcus packed their few supplies carefully, making sure they had enough food and water for the journey ahead. The princess watched him, curious about how humans managed to survive in dangerous situations. Unlike her, who had been trained in royal ways and protected by guards, Marcus had learned survival through experience. She admired his calmness and patience. "Where are we going?" she asked, her voice soft, carrying both curiosity and caution. Marcus looked up at the horizon. "We need to get to the forested valley," he explained. "It's safer there, the cliffs are dangerous, and your captors might still be looking for you." The princess nodded, understanding the urgency. She had spent days hiding, trying to survive, and she knew that staying in one place too long could be deadly, but traveling was difficult. Every step was a challenge, with sharp rocks underfoot, sudden cliffs, and strange creatures moving in the shadows. Marcus helped her whenever the terrain became treacherous, lifting her over obstacles and guiding her carefully across unstable ground. As they moved, the princess began to learn more about Marcus. He spoke little, but his actions spoke volumes. He was thoughtful and cautious, never rushing even when danger was near. He had a way of assessing situations that made her feel safe. Even when they encountered wild creatures, small, insect-like predators that skittered along the rocks, Marcus handled them with care, using smoke and distraction rather than weapons to keep them away. The princess was impressed. In her world, power often came from strength or authority, but here, on this alien planet, she saw a different kind of strength, the quiet courage to protect someone else without expecting anything in return. Her admiration for Marcus grew with every step, though she did not yet understand the emotions stirring in her heart. Hours passed, and the sun climbed higher, making the rocky terrain hotter and more exhausting. Marcus suggested they take a short break beside a small stream that ran through a narrow canyon. The princess knelt by the water, cupping it in her hands and taking a sip. The cool water refreshed her, washing away some of the fatigue from their long journey. Marcus sat nearby, sharpening a small tool he carried for survival. He glanced at her occasionally, noticing how carefully she observed everything around them. "You're very aware of your surroundings," he said quietly. "It helps you stay safe." The princess smiled faintly. "I have to be. I have been hunted before." Her voice carried a trace of sadness, a reminder of the danger she had escaped. She looked at Marcus, feeling a strange warmth in her chest. Somehow his presence made the fear easier to bear. She did not have to face the world alone anymore. As they rested, Marcus shared stories of Earth, his home planet. He spoke of oceans, mountains, forests, and cities filled with people. He described the colors of a sunset, the sound of birds in the morning, and the feeling of rain on the skin. The princess listened with wide eyes, amazed by his words. She had never imagined such a world existed. In her own kingdom, she had seen stars and distant planets through telescopes, but Earth sounded alive in a way that was different from the distant stars she had observed. "I wish I could see it," she said softly, almost to herself. "You will," Marcus said with a gentle smile, though he knew it would not be easy. "If we get through this journey, maybe one day you will." Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden sound, a low growl coming from the rocks nearby. Marcus immediately moved between the princess and the source of the sound. Out of the shadows emerged a creature, taller than a human, with glowing eyes and sharp claws. Its movement was fluid, predatory. The princess froze, but Marcus remained calm. "Stay behind me," he whispered, his voice steady. He grabbed a small flare from his pack and activated it, sending a bright light toward the creature. It hissed and retreated slightly, cautious of the sudden brightness. Marcus used this moment to guide the princess away from the creature and deeper into the canyon. The creature followed for a short distance, but when Marcus threw the flare further along the rocks, it chased the light instead, giving them a chance to escape. The princess was shaken but impressed. "You are brave," she said, "and clever. Marcus shrugged, though he could not hide a small smile. I have to be. Out here, bravery without brains gets you eaten. For the first time since her capture, the princess laughed, a light, clear sound that echoed through the canyon. Marcus smiled at her, feeling a strange joy at hearing her laugh. It was a sound of relief, of hope, and it reminded him why he was doing this journey. As evening approached, they reached the edge of a forested valley. The trees were tall and dense, their leaves glowing faintly in the dim light. The air was cooler here, filled with the scent of damp earth and fresh vegetation. Marcus guided the princess into the safety of the trees, knowing that the dense foliage would hide them from anyone searching. They set up a small camp near a stream, using branches and leaves to create a temporary shelter. Marcus started a small fire, careful to keep it controlled. The princess helped gather water and food, learning from Marcus how to identify edible plants and fruits. She was quick to understand, picking up his instructions with remarkable speed. As night fell, they sat together by the fire, sharing a simple meal. The princess felt a sense of peace she had not experienced in days. For the first time, she allowed herself to relax completely, trusting Marcus completely. He, in turn, felt a deep sense of responsibility and connection. He had saved her life once, but he now realized that he wanted to stay by her side, to protect her not just physically, but emotionally as well. During the night, the princess confided more of her fears. She spoke of the mercenaries who had captured her, of the constant danger she had faced, and of the loneliness that had accompanied her royal duties. Marcus listened without judgment, offering small words of comfort. "You are stronger than you think," he said. "And you don't have to face everything alone anymore." The princess felt a warmth spread through her chest at his words. She had been trained to lead, to command, to hide her feelings, but here, with Marcus, she felt safe enough to be herself. She began to see him not just as a rescuer, but as a companion, someone who understood courage and kindness in equal measure. The next morning, they continued their journey deeper into the forest. The trees provided cover, but the terrain was uneven and unfamiliar. Strange sounds echoed around them, calls of unknown creatures, rustling of leaves, and the occasional distant roar. Marcus remained vigilant, guiding the princess carefully, teaching her how to move quietly and observe her surroundings. During the day, they came across a small clearing filled with glowing flowers. The princess paused, mesmerized by the sight. "It's beautiful," she whispered, bending down to touch the petals. Marcus watched her, smiling at her fascination. In that moment, he saw her not as royalty, not as someone to be rescued, but as a person, curious, brave, and alive. They rested in the clearing, and the princess began to open up more. She asked Marcus about his life on Earth, his family, and his dreams. He shared stories of his childhood, of the adventures he had always wanted to take, and of the people he loved. She listened intently, fascinated by his stories and by the emotion in his voice. As the sun set, casting a soft glow over the forest, the princess realized that she had begun to care for Marcus in a way she had never expected. It was not just gratitude, it was something deeper, something that made her heart beat faster whenever he was near. She did not fully understand these feelings, but she knew they were real. Marcus noticed subtle changes in her behavior, how she smiled more freely, how she trusted him instinctively, how she looked at him with a mixture of curiosity and admiration. He, too, felt a growing connection, a bond formed not just through survival, but through shared experiences, trust, and the understanding that they were both far from home, relying on each other in a dangerous world. By the end of the second day, they had found a safe spot to rest for the night. The forest provided cover, and the sounds of the night creatures were distant enough not to disturb them. They built a small fire, shared a quiet meal, and sat together in companionable silence. The princess looked at Marcus, her eyes reflecting the firelight. She did not yet have the words to express her feelings, but she knew one thing: she trusted him completely, and she wanted him by her side. Marcus, sensing her unspoken thoughts, felt a similar certainty. He had come to care for her deeply, and he knew that their journey together was only beginning. As they drifted off to sleep under the glowing canopy of the forest, both felt a quiet hope. They had survived the dangers of the planet so far, and they had found something unexpected: companionship, trust, and the beginnings of a bond that neither had anticipated. The path ahead would be difficult, but together they felt stronger, braver, and ready to face whatever challenges awaited them. The forest of Alaris had seemed like a safe haven at first, But the princess and Marcus soon realized that danger was never far away. Strange shadows moved between the trees, and faint sounds of creatures echoed in the distance. Marcus kept a careful watch as they continued through the dense undergrowth, his senses alert for any signs of trouble. The princess followed closely, trusting his guidance, though she could not ignore the unease that crept into her chest. "I think we should move quickly," Marcus said quietly, scanning the forest. "We don't know what's out here, and staying in one place too long could be risky." The princess nodded. She had learned to read the environment quickly, to notice subtle movements, and to recognize the signs of predators. Yet even with her training, she found herself relying on Marcus more and more. He moved with calm confidence, a presence that reassured her even when danger seemed imminent. As they pressed forward, they came to a small river. The water ran clear and fast, winding through the trees like a silver ribbon. Marcus knelt by the riverbank to fill their water containers, while the princess observed the flow of the water, noting the small rocks and currents. "You move through this forest with ease," she said, her voice soft. "I am not used to such wild places." Marcus looked up at her with a faint smile. "Experience helps, but so does paying attention. You've been doing very well yourself." The princess felt a small warmth at his praise. She had always been trained to lead, to command, and to rely on her own skills, yet here in this strange world, she realized that relying on someone else did not make her weak. With Marcus, she could be strong and vulnerable at the same time, and she was beginning to appreciate the feeling. Their peaceful moment was interrupted by a sudden rustling in the bushes. Both of them froze. Marcus held up a hand, signaling the princess to stay still. From the shadows, two figures emerged, humanoid but clearly different from Marcus. They were scouts sent by the faction that had captured the princess. "Stay behind me," Marcus whispered, placing himself between the princess and the intruders. His eyes were sharp, calculating the best way to protect her. The scouts did not notice them immediately, moving cautiously through the undergrowth. Marcus knew that fighting them could be dangerous, especially since the scouts were trained and equipped for capture. He needed a plan, and quickly. "Follow my lead," he murmured. With swift, silent movements, he led the princess deeper into the trees, moving parallel to the scouts but staying out of sight. The forest was thick, but Marcus knew how to use it to their advantage. They ducked behind large ferns, climbed over fallen logs, and moved quietly through the shadows. The princess's heart pounded. She had faced danger before, but nothing like this. She watched Marcus with a mix of fear and admiration. He was calm, composed, and always aware of their surroundings. She realized that she had come to depend on him, not just for safety, but for guidance, for reassurance, and increasingly for emotional strength. After what felt like hours but was only minutes, they reached a small clearing far from the scouts. Marcus crouched, motioning for the princess to do the same. "We're safe for now," he said softly, "but we need to keep moving. They might be looking for you." The princess exhaled slowly, trying to calm her racing heart. She realized something that surprised her. She felt a strong desire to stay close to Marcus, to trust him completely, and to protect him if she could. Her feelings were becoming more complicated, more intense, and she did not yet know what they meant. As they continued, Marcus spoke of their plan. "We'll need to reach the high cliffs near the eastern ridge. From there we can signal for help or find a way off this planet. But it won't be easy. The terrain is dangerous and we may encounter more scouts or creatures along the way." The princess nodded. "I will follow you," she said firmly. "I trust you." Marcus glanced at her, surprised by the sincerity in her voice. He felt a mix of pride and something deeper, something he could not quite name. "Then we'll make it," he said with quiet confidence. "Together." As the day wore on, the forest became denser and the path more treacherous. They climbed over fallen trees, waded through shallow streams, and avoided patches of quicksand-like soil that could trap the unwary. The princess learned to move silently, to observe every sound and shadow, and to trust her instincts. Marcus guided her, teaching her small survival tricks and techniques that could save her life. During one particularly difficult stretch, they had to cross a steep slope covered in loose rocks. Marcus went first, testing each step carefully. The princess followed, gripping his hand when she slipped. "Careful," he warned, his voice calm but firm. "One wrong move and we could both fall." She nodded, focusing on every step, and slowly they made it across safely. The experience, though frightening, brought them closer. The princess realized that Marcus was not just her protector. He was her partner in survival, someone who understood her fears and helped her overcome them. As night approached, the forest opened into a small valley. They found a secluded spot to rest, surrounded by tall, protective trees. Marcus built a small fire, careful to keep it low so it would not attract attention. The princess helped gather food and they shared a quiet meal. Sitting by the fire, the princess began to speak of her past. She told Marcus about her life as royalty, the expectations placed on her, and the dangers she had faced. She spoke of her fears, her loneliness, and the weight of responsibility she carried. Marcus listened intently, offering words of comfort and understanding. "You faced so much," he said softly, "and yet here you are still fighting. That takes courage." The princess felt a warmth in her chest at his words. She had been trained to hide her emotions, to appear strong at all times, but with Marcus, she felt safe enough to be vulnerable. She realized that she was beginning to care for him in ways she had never expected. The night passed quietly, but neither of them slept much. The forest was alive with sounds, and both were aware that danger could come at any moment. Marcus kept watch, and the princess stayed close, learning to read the signs of the forest. By morning, their bond had strengthened even more. The next day, they faced new challenges. The terrain became steeper, and the air thinner as they climbed toward the high cliffs. The princess struggled at first, unused to such physical exertion, but Marcus encouraged her with patience and gentle guidance. "Take it one step at a time," he said. "You're stronger than you think." His words inspired her. She pushed herself, learning to trust her own abilities while relying on his support. Together, they navigated dangerous slopes, avoided hidden pitfalls, and dealt with occasional creatures that roamed the cliffs. One afternoon, a sudden storm rolled in. Dark clouds covered the sky, and rain began to fall in heavy sheets. The ground became slippery, and the cliffs even more dangerous. Marcus quickly found a small overhang where they could take shelter. They huddled together, sharing body heat to stay warm. The princess looked at him, her hair wet and plastered to her face, and felt a surge of gratitude and admiration. "You always seem to know what to do," she said quietly. Marcus smiled faintly. "I've had some practice," he replied, "but it's easier when I'm not alone. We help each other." The princess nodded, realizing the truth in his words. Their survival depended not only on skill and knowledge, but on trust, cooperation, and understanding. And in that storm, she felt their bond deepen in a way she could not ignore. As the storm passed, they continued climbing. The sun emerged, casting golden light over the cliffs and valleys below. The princess felt a sense of awe at the beauty of Alaris, despite its dangers. She realized that the planet, with all its threats, also held moments of wonder, moments she could experience because Marcus was with her. By evening, they reached a plateau overlooking the valley below. From this height, they could see miles of forest and jagged terrain stretching into the distance. Marcus set up a small camp, and they rested together, exhausted but relieved. The princess looked at Marcus, her eyes reflecting the fading light. She realized that her feelings were no longer just admiration or gratitude. They were something deeper, something she could not yet name. And she sensed that Marcus felt the same way, though neither spoke the words aloud. That night, as they sat by the fire, the princess reached out and placed her hand lightly on Marcus's. He looked at her, surprised, and then held her hand gently. No words were needed. The gesture spoke of trust, connection, and the beginnings of something more profound. As they drifted off to sleep under the stars, both knew that the journey ahead would be difficult. There would be more dangers, more challenges, and more decisions that could change their lives forever. But they also knew that they were not alone. Together, they could face whatever came next. In the quiet of the forest, with the stars shining above, a new chapter in their story had begun. A chapter of trust, courage, and the first stirrings of love between a human and an alien princess. The next morning, Marcus and the princess awoke to the soft light of Alaris, filtering through the trees. The plateau they had reached the day before offered a brief respite, but Marcus knew their journey was far from over. The eastern ridge they needed to reach was still many miles away, and the terrain beyond was steep, rocky, and unpredictable. He packed their limited supplies carefully, checking water and food, making sure nothing was left behind. The princess watched him, noticing the care and precision in his actions. "You plan every step," she said, her voice gentle. "I think that is why we have survived this long." Marcus gave a small smile. "I've learned the hard way," he replied, And besides, I'm not alone. You help more than you know. The princess felt warmth in her chest at his words. She had begun to see Marcus as more than just her rescuer. He was her partner, her protector, and someone whose presence made her feel safe in ways she had never known. Her heart skipped slightly as she realized she cared for him deeply, though she was not yet ready to fully name the feeling. As they descended from the plateau toward the ridge, the forest gave way to rocky terrain. Sharp cliffs rose around them, and jagged rocks made the path treacherous. Marcus led the way, carefully choosing each step and helping the princess when the slope became dangerous. Suddenly, a loud noise echoed through the canyon, a deep, metallic roar that made both of them freeze. Marcus's eyes narrowed. He recognized the sound immediately, a patrol from the faction that had captured the princess. They had followed them, tracking their movements, and now they were closing in. "Stay behind me," Marcus whispered, his body tensed, ready for action. The princess obeyed instinctively, her trust in him absolute. She had learned that panicking would only make the situation worse, and she relied on his judgment completely. The patrol appeared a few moments later, moving carefully across the rocks. They were armed and alert, their eyes scanning for any sign of the princess. Marcus knew that fighting them head-on would be dangerous. He needed a plan, and fast. He gestured for the princess to follow him toward a narrow ledge that jutted out from the cliff. "This way," he said quietly. "We can use the terrain to our advantage." Step by step, they moved along the ledge. The patrol followed at a distance, unaware of the trap Marcus was preparing. When they reached a section where the ledge narrowed to just a foot wide, Marcus stopped. "Hold on to the rock," he instructed. "We can make them think we fell and they won't risk following us." The princess gripped the rock tightly, her heart pounding. Marcus positioned himself in front of her, then carefully kicked a loose boulder over the edge. The noise was deafening, echoing through the canyon. The patrol froze, uncertain, and Marcus used the distraction to guide the princess along the narrow ledge. Step by step, they moved until they reached a safer path, hidden from the patrol's view. Once they were clear, the princess exhaled in relief. "You were amazing," she said, her eyes wide with admiration. "I do not know what I would have done without you." Marcus smiled, though he could not hide the concern in his eyes. "We're not out of danger yet," he said, "but we're getting closer." They continued climbing toward the eastern ridge, the sun beginning to set and casting long shadows across the rocks. The princess stumbled at one point, her foot slipping on loose gravel. Marcus caught her immediately, pulling her close to steady her. Their eyes met, and for a moment neither spoke. There was a connection there, a shared understanding, a growing bond that neither could ignore. The princess felt her cheeks warm. She had never experienced anything like this before. She had been taught to command, to lead, and to hide her emotions, but with Marcus, she felt free to feel, free to trust, and free to care. She realized that she wanted him by her side, not just for survival, but for companionship, for comfort, for something deeper she could not yet name. Marcus noticed the subtle change in her expression. He felt a similar pull, a growing affection that went beyond duty or friendship. He had come to care for her deeply, though he had not yet found the words to express it. For now, their focus remained on survival, but the connection between them grew stronger with every shared step, every moment of trust, and every danger they overcame together. Night fell, and they found a sheltered spot beneath a rocky outcrop to rest. Marcus started a small fire, and they shared a simple meal of rations and water. The princess sat close, her gaze fixed on the flames. She felt a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration, having survived another day with Marcus by her side. "You always seem calm, even when things are dangerous," she said softly. "How do you do it?" Marcus shrugged, poking the fire with a stick. "I focus on what I can control," he said. "Panicking won't help either of us. And having someone you care about along the way makes it easier to stay calm." The princess looked at him, her heart skipping a beat at his words. She realized that he was speaking not just of survival, but of the bond between them. She felt a surge of emotion, a mixture of gratitude, admiration, and something more profound. She did not yet know how to name it, but she knew it was real. The next morning, they continued their climb toward the ridge. The terrain grew steeper and more dangerous, with jagged rocks and narrow ledges that demanded their full attention. At one point, the princess lost her footing on a loose patch of gravel. Marcus reacted instantly, grabbing her arm and pulling her close. "Careful," he warned, his voice sharp but controlled. "You're safe, I've got you." The princess clung to him, her heart racing. She felt a mix of fear and relief, but also a growing sense of trust. Marcus had saved her again, but more than that, he had shown her that she could rely on him completely. Her feelings for him deepened, though she kept them unspoken for now. As they neared the top of the ridge, they encountered their greatest challenge yet, a narrow bridge of rock spanning a deep chasm. One misstep could send them plummeting into the abyss below. Marcus went first, testing each step and keeping a careful eye on the princess. She followed closely, gripping his hand whenever the path grew uncertain. Halfway across, a sudden rumble shook the ground. Rocks slid from above, and the princess screamed, losing her balance for a moment. Marcus reacted instantly, pulling her close and steadying her. "Hold on," he shouted, his voice filled with urgency. "We can make it!" Together, they continued across the bridge, their trust in each other unshakable. When they finally reached the other side, the princess collapsed to her knees, breathing heavily. Marcus knelt beside her, offering water and a comforting hand on her shoulder. "You did it," he said softly. "We did it." The princess looked at him, her eyes shining. "I could not have done it without you," she admitted. You are remarkable." Marcus felt a warmth spread through his chest. "And you are brave," he replied. "Bravery isn't just about strength. It's about facing fear and moving forward anyway. You've done that every step of the way." For a moment, they simply sat together, catching their breath and absorbing the significance of their achievement. They had faced danger, uncertainty, and fear, and they had survived, together. As night fell, they found a hidden cave near the top of the ridge to rest. The princess watched Marcus as he prepared their small camp, lighting a fire and arranging their supplies. She felt a growing admiration for him, not just for his skills, but for his patience, his courage, and his unwavering presence. Sitting by the fire, she finally spoke of her feelings, though carefully, cautiously. "Marcus, I do not know how to say this," she began, her voice soft. "But I trust you, completely, and I care for you more than I thought possible." Marcus looked at her, his eyes reflecting the firelight. He felt the same emotions, the same deep connection, but he had not yet found the words to say. Instead, he reached for her hand and held it gently. No words were needed. The gesture spoke of trust, understanding, and the beginning of something profound. That night, as they slept under the stars, both felt a sense of hope and determination. The journey ahead would be difficult, but they knew that together they could face any challenge. Their bond had grown stronger through danger and trust, and the feelings between them had begun to take root. The eastern ridge was still ahead, and beyond it lay the possibility of freedom and safety. But more importantly, it was the promise of a future they could face together, no matter what challenges awaited. The human and the alien princess, bound by courage, trust, and growing affection, were ready to continue their journey, stronger than ever before.